right, welcome in everyone. Diving right in today, we're looking at something that might not be, the first thing you think of with these sorts of cases, but really it's a huge factor, I think, in personal injury and medical negligence cases. It's the administrative side
Oh, absolutely.
of the whole medico-legal world. And, if you're listening to the show, you're probably like us and you want to get to the bottom of what's important quickly, right? You don't need all the fluff. So we've got some good stuff here. We've got some experience from ML professionals. They're a big player in the medico-legal world. And I had a really interesting conversation with the personal injury solicitor, someone who's really dealing with this every single day.
Yeah, that's great.
So what we really want to do today is try to figure out, what are the big administrative hurdles that law firms are facing, and what are the reasons behind all of this, and maybe what are some solutions that both legal and medical professionals are working on to try to get over these.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think it's really crucial that we understand the administrative workload in these cases, because it's not just about papers and files piling up in an office. It's about the direct impact this has on individuals like yourself, who are seeking justice after, an injury or an instance of negligence, and how effectively they can navigate the system.
Yeah, I mean, think about it from your perspective as someone who's following this. If there's a lot of back and forth and delays that could be prevented, it's really the claimants who suffer, right?
Right.
They're the ones that are dealing with all of this, and then having all this uncertainty just makes things worse.
Absolutely.
So, I think that, one thing the solicitor was mentioning was that, they're running a firm that's got, over 10,000 cases across 10 different offices. And so, just the scale of this is pretty amazing. And one thing that became immediately clear was just how much of their day is spent just trying to get and correct medical reports.
Yeah, and it's a huge problem. It's a massive part of their daily workflow.
Yeah, they're chasing down medical experts for the reports. They're trying to figure out, if there's errors in the draft versions and requesting amendments. And it's just a constant back and forth.
Yes, and that takes time away that could be spent building the case, preparing the legal arguments.
Right. And so, when you think about it from the perspective of the claimant, these delays are a big deal, right? It just makes the whole process of reaching a settlement slower, and it puts a big strain on these law firms. If they got to spend all this time doing admin work, that means less time for the important legal work.
And it costs money, more resources, personnel tied up in these tasks instead of the core legal work.
Exactly. And this is, something that the solicitor brought up that I thought was really interesting. This issue of trust, when these cases just keep dragging on and on because of all these administrative issues, it really can damage the claimant's trust in the whole legal system. And, they're already going through a lot, and this just kind of makes it feel like the system's not working for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The system's not working for them, and it erodes their trust.
Right.
So we've seen the impact of this administrative burden, the delays, increased workload, and the potential loss of trust for the claimant. But now let's delve into why these challenges exist. What are the root causes?
Well, the solicitor really pointed to the lack of good digital systems. They said that relying on doing everything manually, all these emails and physical paperwork, it's a huge drain on efficiency, and it leads to errors. Imagine trying to keep track of thousands of documents and emails without a proper digital workflow. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster.
It's overwhelming. And they also mentioned specific bottlenecks, such as the delays in getting amendments to those expert reports, and medical experts sometimes just falling behind schedule on reports.
Yeah, and from the medical expert side, I can tell you there are definitely some things that contribute to this. I mean, first of all, most doctors in this area are focused on their clinical practice, right? They're treating patients. And so medico-legal work, it is important, but it's not always the top priority when you've got patients that need you. And so you're often squeezed for time when it comes to administrative tasks like writing reports or making amendments.
Yeah, it makes sense. Clinical responsibilities have to come first.
Right. And another thing is a lot of these medical experts are working on their own or in small practices. And so they don't have the dedicated secretaries or admin support that you really need to handle all the paperwork and all the communication that comes with these medico-legal cases. So, they might be incredible doctors, but they don't have the back office stuff to be able to process reports quickly and respond to the lawyers quickly.
That's a key insight. The support structure or the lack of it can have a big impact.
Yeah, yeah. And then you've also got this issue of, just how familiar are these medical experts with the legal requirements,
That's right.
The legal side of these cases, the personal injury and the medical negligence cases. It can be really complicated and frankly, a bit overwhelming if you're not dealing with it every day. And so some medical professionals might not be completely up to speed on what exactly is required for these reports or all the details of the laws. And that can lead to, reports needing a lot of revisions or even being rejected. And that just causes more delays for the claimant.
And you also touched on technology and mentorship earlier. How do those factors play a role?
Well, technology has come a long way, but not every medical expert is using the latest tools, to streamline their work.
Yeah.
There's some people who haven't really adopted, efficient report writing software or secure communication platforms or systems to help them manage deadlines and feedback. And having a good mentor can make a world of difference. Someone who can guide you through the ins and outs of the medico-legal process, but those opportunities aren't always available. So you've got this kind of, push and pull, right? You've got the clinical demands pulling in one direction, you've got the legal expectations pulling in another, and often you just don't have enough admin support or, tech savvy to really bridge that gap.
It really highlights the complexity of the issue. The claimant is caught in the middle of all of this.
Exactly.
So now we've seen some of the root causes. Let's talk about solutions. The solicitor specifically asked about good digital strategies for getting medical reports done in a timely manner and that are also legally sound. And I think the approach of ML professionals is a really good example.
Yeah, they've been around since 2008. They've done over 30,000 orthopedic medical examinations. So they've been thinking about this for a while. And one of their key strategies, and this is something I've seen in my own work, and we talked about it, is having a centralized digital platform.
Now, what's interesting about their approach is that they've used technology to directly address the communication and feedback issues we've been talking about.
Exactly. So solicitors can give feedback on draft reports directly in the system. It's not just sending emails back and forth, which can easily get lost. It's a structured and secure way to point out errors or ask for clarification or suggest amendments.
Yeah.
And what's really neat is the system actually automatically prompts you for common issues. So it kind of guides the report towards what it needs to be. And it just cuts down on so much back and forth,
That's fantastic. It saves everyone time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what other strategies have they implemented?
Well, another really good one is they have regular joint training sessions, and this is not just for their own medical experts. They bring in solicitors as well.
Oh, wow.
And they'll review, anonymized case studies together and talk about best practices. And it's just a really collaborative environment, and it helps everyone understand, what the legal expectations are on the one hand and what the practical realities of medical reporting are on the other hand. And so it just helps to improve the quality of the reports right from the start, and that reduces the need for revisions later on.
That makes sense. Building that shared understanding from the outset is critical.
Yeah, yeah. And then they've also got these dedicated process coordinators.
Okay, and what do they do?
So they act as a final check before a report goes out. They make sure that the report meets all the standards, both medically and legally.
Right.
And that helps to catch any last-minute problems before they can cause delays or complications.
It's a very systematic approach.
Yeah.
And their medical report management system was developed in-house by an orthopedic specialist with expertise in digital health, which is quite impressive.
Yeah, I mean, having that kind of in-house IT division led by someone who really knows both the medical and the tech world, it means they can create a system that's really tailored to the specific needs of medico-legal reporting, and that's a big advantage,
Yeah.
It's going to be much more effective than just using some off-the-shelf software that might not really understand the unique challenges of this field.
So we've got this great example from ML professionals, but what about the broader industry? What other solutions and best practices did the solicitor suggest?
Well, a lot of what they suggested actually aligns with what ML Professionals is doing, but they're thinking about it on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
They really emphasize the need for better integration and communication between the legal and medical worlds as a whole. It's not just about individual firms adopting new technologies. It's about creating a more interconnected system where everyone's working together more smoothly.
Yes, and moving away from manual, paper-based processes to standardized digital systems.
Absolutely. Getting rid of all that paper and those manual processes and moving towards standardized digital systems, That's key to saving time and reducing errors. And they also talked about having this centralized platform where
Right.
both legal and medical professionals can see how reports are progressing and access standardized templates.
Yeah, that would provide so much transparency and keep everyone on the same page.
Exactly. Everyone on the same page, real-time updates, easy access to documents. That's the kind of efficiency we're talking about.
And they also highlighted the importance of training for medical professionals, didn't they?
Yes, they really believe that if medical professionals had better training on the legal expectations, it would make a big difference.
Right, so they can produce higher quality reports right from the start, which would minimize the need for revisions and follow-ups later on.
Exactly. It would just make everything smoother and faster.
And from your perspective in the medical field, what are some key areas for improvement?
Well, I think it's really important to develop these digital platforms that have built-in checks and prompts to make sure that whatever's submitted meets the legal requirements. It's like embedding the legal stuff directly into the technology that doctors are using.
Yeah.
And then having good feedback loops with solicitors is also crucial so doctors can get better and better and really understand what the lawyers need. And then, having strong mentorship programs and support systems for doctors who are new to this whole medico-legal world can be really valuable. It can help them navigate all the complexities and ultimately, write better reports.
So the common threads here are collaboration, better communication through technology, and training and support for medical professionals. It seems like a multifaceted approach is needed to reduce these administrative burdens.
Exactly. And the goal, both for the solicitor and for me, is to make the whole process faster and to get better outcomes for the claimants, the people who are at the heart of all this.
Yeah.
The ones who need justice and resolution.
Exactly.
And it's worth mentioning how organizations like ML Professionals have shown they can adapt, particularly during the pandemic.
Absolutely. I mean, when it became difficult to do in-person exams, they were really quick to implement what they call their hybrid examination model.
Right.
And that allowed them to offer both in-person assessments and remote orthopedic examinations through their own telemedicine software.
Okay.
So it meant that they could keep things moving for the claimants even when everything was so disrupted.
That's fantastic. They were able to ensure continuity of service during a really challenging time.
Yeah. And they were actually recognized in a peer-reviewed medical journal for this approach.
Oh, wow.
So it wasn't just a temporary fix. It's a forward-thinking way to provide services.
It shows a commitment to finding solutions that work.
Right. And they've got a really wide range of services. They do comprehensive medical examinations for both personal injury and medical negligence claims. They've got examination venues all over the UK. And of course, they've got the online option that we talked about.
So to sum up for the listeners,
Yeah.
what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into the administrative side of things?
Well, I think the main points are pretty clear. There's a lot of administrative burden in personal injury and medical negligence cases, and this burden really can have a negative impact on the legal process and on the claimants who are seeking justice. And these challenges come from a bunch of different factors, the lack of good digital workflows, the pressures of both the legal and medical professions, and just the fact that they have different requirements.
Right, they're coming from different worlds in a sense.
Yeah. But as we saw from ML professionals and from talking to the solicitor, there are solutions out there, things like digital integration, better collaboration between legal and medical experts, and more training and support for medical professionals. These are all things that can make a real difference.
And ultimately, it's about ensuring a more timely and less stressful path to justice for those who have been injured or have suffered due to negligence.
Exactly. And on that note, here's something to think about. We've talked about the role of technology
Right.
and how it's growing in this sector, but imagine how things like digital health technologies and even artificial intelligence, things like GPU acceleration, quantum computing, natural language processing, all these things that ML professionals talks about in their blogs, imagine how those could completely change these medical legal processes in the years to come.
It's an exciting area to watch.
Yeah, it really makes you think about what the future holds, for legal and medical professionals, and most importantly, for the people who are trying to navigate the legal system to get justice.
It's a future full of possibilities.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you to all our listeners for joining us on the deep dive.